shall possess it. The owl also and the raven shall dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. You know, there's only 3 places in the Bible where God uses the terminology tohu vabohu in the Hebrew tongue, which means it became, not was, but it became utterly void and without form. Well, the word and one of them happens to be Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. The other happens to be in the 4th chapter of Jeremiah and here, okay, where he uses both terms together. He will use the term tuhu, which means void and empty, in chapter 45 when we get there. Anyway, let's declare this just a little bit. Upon the line of confusion, a line, the measure of absolutely nothingness. Can you imagine a people that would slip so low that in God's eyes they were a nothingness? That's pretty bad, okay? And stones, this word stone it can even be a plummet, and you might call it the plumb bob in Satan's hand that he measures by, inasmuch as the word line means measure in the prior sentence. So you kind of see the evil actings and the rule of thumb that Satan goes by, which is what? Absolutely void and empty. Why anyone could choose to wish to follow someone of that character is beyond me. And that would even follow him to the point that they would begin to have a likeness to him. A life that is empty, a life that has no purpose as far as God is concerned, when they could have been useful to their Father and have been pleasing to him. Tuhu baba, only 3 times. And here happens to be one of those times. The measure of Satan. What a destroyer. It's no wonder God named him the destroyer. Verse 12. They shall call the nobles thereof to the kingdom. How would you like to be a noble in Satan's kingdom? But none shall be there, and all her princes shall be nothing. Absolutely worthless. 13, and thorns shall come up in her palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortress thereof. Remember, Satan, the bramble bush was a type for Satan. That's an old thorn bush. When the trees were looking for a king, remember? In the fortress thereof, and it shall be an habitation for dragons, let's say jackals, and a court for owls or ostriches. Verse 14. The wild beast of the desert shall also meet with the wild beast of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall rest there and find for herself a place of rest. The word, many people in mythology use the word Lilith. Probably this is the only time you're going to find it in the Hebrew manuscripts. The word screech is Lilith. But it means a night creature. Some scholars even call it a vampire. I won't go that far. It's an evil spirit, Lilith. And we see nothing but the word means a darkness. It's a rare word that means darkness dispelling light, because light always dispels darkness. But leaning toward the dark side. That's what Satan does. You can see the degradation that our Father is bringing to life on the pages when you absorb it. You don't want any part of that, do you? I don't think so. 15. There shall the great owl make her nest, and lay and hatch, and gather under her shadow. There shall the vultures also be gathered, every one with her mate. Now, why is it, how could that be? Well, you must remember, You've got to rightly divide the Word of God. Stop and think. Put your mind in the place of the day of vengeance. When is that? Well, it's on the Lord's day. These events are transpiring after the Lord's day. And if you can bring yourself to it, imagine that all beings are transformed into spiritual bodies in an instant. And even as Christ, after the transfiguration, was in a room with the 11 and walked through the wall. Now, was the wall not there, or was Christ not there? And I tell you, they were both there, but they were in different dimensions. And you got to think of that. That's why that when someone is in the process of death, sometimes they can see a loved one that maybe has passed on before in a different dimension because they are in the transition of passing to that dimension themselves. Now, that's not hokey pokey, and that's not far out. That's biblical, all right? That's just the way it is. This is why none of us can see God and live. Why? Because a person in the flesh can't see God. He's in a different dimension. That's why he sent Christ, God with us, Emmanuel. So why am I bringing this forth? Because all these things sound so gross. That all these places for this long period of time, in this dimension, they will, because we'll still be here, but perhaps in a dimension that is unimaginable. The next chapter, I believe, goes into that a little bit. By that I mean trying to describe it to the human eye. We'll catch up with it then. Verse 16. What I'm saying is it's not as bad as you might think. We're going to be changed into spiritual bodies that any of these things have none effect upon. 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord. That's this one. And read. No one of these shall fail. Everything I have stated shall come to pass exactly as it's written. That's what Father is saying. None shall want her mate, for my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. And of course the subject was Idumea, which is the Kenite, and those atheistic, communistic tendencies. People that, in other words, people that drive God from them. They're going to be destroyed. And of course, the millennium could change things, be that as it may. But even they shall be they're transformed into spiritual bodies. 17. Some to destruction and some to life, some to teaching and some to make a choice. 17. And he hath cast the lot for them, and his hand hath divided it unto them by line. Do you think he doesn't? It's in the book, friend. You can search the book of life, and guess what? Your whole record is right there, that you have not repented for. That's one time, every once in a while, you better repent, saying, Father, forgive me for all the sins I have ever committed. I mean, you need a clean page every once in a while when you live in these flesh bodies. This is a line he measures by, the plummet. Not that plummet that the stone was mentioned prior of Satan's stone, which is crooked as a dog's hind leg. Okay, continuing. They shall possess it forever, from generation to generation shall they dwell therein, in that dimension. Okay, so it is something that the finality of this earth age as it passes. It is in the transition of passage all through the Lord's day. When the Lord's day is over and Satan is released a short season, it is past forever and ever, and we enter into a rejuvenated earth with everything made new. Well, not new in that sense, but rejuvenated back to its original state before it became what? Genesis 1:2, Tuhu Vabohu, which is to say the overthrow or the katabel of Satan when it disrupted. You see, when we get to the 45th chapter, you're going to find God didn't create this earth stormy and earthquakey and all that nonsense. It was perfect. The orbit in relationship to the sun, true north was true north, period. Not 90 miles off with a little gyration to bring about jet streams and storms and the firmament falling to let through the damaging rays of the sun rather than to shadow the earth whereby it reflected night and day where there was neither night nor day in a sense. That it was a perfect, and the dew at night watered all vegetation, and therefore we find buttercups at the North Pole. It's going back to that. Aren't you glad? Let's get into chapter 35. And kind of, if we were going to title this, let's say we would title it, Yahweh the King in His Glory. This is what He's going to make it into. Chapter 35, verse 1. The wilderness, or you might say even the wilderness, and the solitary place shall be glad for them. I mean, even the earth looks forward to Christ's return as King. And the desert shall rejoice and blossom as a rose. Beautiful, beautiful rose. You know, the desert, if you love the desert a certain time of the year, it is beautiful. The flowers are beautiful, the wildflower. But what it means is plants, beautiful as they may be, that are acclimated to the desert, a regular rose could grow there beautifully and well and in a natural sense. Why? It's going to be nice there in the desert. Verse 2, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice, even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it, the excellency of Carmel and Sharon. Remember, I defined those for you. Just call them paradise or gardens, all right? They shall see the glory of the Lord and the excellency of our God. I mean, the whole world is turned into a garden. These particular, the reason these cities or places are important is because they surround all around Jerusalem. It means everywhere it's going to be like a garden. Beautiful, wonderful. And we're gaining toward that place, beloved, where nothing offends and our Father will be in control. Rightly divide the word. He has returned. The rejuvenation of the earth has taken place, and He will set His kingdom up on this earth, on His Mount Zion, forever and ever. Verse 3. Strengthen ye the weak hands, and confirm the feeble knees. You comfort everybody with the good news. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to be happy. No one's going to be sick. In other words, you won't even ask, are there any sick? Because there won't be. There'll be no sickness there. Verse 4. Say to them that are of a fearful heart, be strong. Fear not. You don't have to be afraid of anything. Behold, your God will come with vengeance. Even God with a recompense. He will come and save you. And do you know what that recompense is for those that serve Him? It's reward. A double portion. You know, there has never been a time that serving Him and giving Him pleasure in what you do is at a premium. Why? Because there's so many lost. There's always been lost, but now it grows a more desperate, I'll even say an emergency situation daily because of the people that pull further and further away into the unknown desolation of Satan as he draws them. You know, it's an amazing thing, and I'm going to offend some people, but I've never let that bother me a whole lot. But you know, when people call something music that is nothing but a bunch of rotten, filthy gyrations I have a pretty good, not pretty good, a fair ear for music. I don't get any music out of chance. As a matter of fact, I hate it because it's satanic. Now, when you have a bunch of people that are so misled that they call that music, then you can see the sad situation that this earth is in. They are so stupid, they call it in the arts. And they use the banner of arts to destroy all that is holy, or attempt to. They're not about to destroy it. Why? We're taking names and kicking dragon. They don't get away with anything. And boy, when this time comes to pass, are they going to get it? All right? They're going to get it. Why? God is a God of vengeance, and vengeance belongeth to Him. And many might say, well, that sounds rather cruel. No, that's the only way you can save them. You got to beat it into them. Well, you mean God would beat someone? Well, spiritually, He sure will. And you know how all it takes is just to pull the curtain back and let them have one glimpse of the lake of fire, and I'm sure they'll get the message right real quick like. You can take a person that's has a little twisted viewpoint on some things, and when they face reality face to face, it kind of they mature quickly. Verse 5. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Again, there will be no sickness, and we're out of the natural flesh body and its weaknesses into a beautiful spiritual body, a child of God. Verse 6. Then shall the lame man leap as an hart. You take a lame man that could hardly get around. Have you ever seen a deer jump a fence? You know how I love deer, and I happen to live in an area where I've got 12 of them right now that are my pets. I don't pet them because that's dangerous. That would get them killed, because some people don't love them the way I do. They love them all right, medium rare or whichever way, okay? But anyway, a lame man could jump a fence like a deer. And the tongue of the dumb sing, make a beautiful song. For in the wilderness shall waters break out, and streams in the desert. That perfection that God will bring to this globe when He rids it of Satan and those that will continually at the end of the millennium insist on following Him. How off base could one be that they would choose the lake of fire over the description of this place? Many people say, I'm searching, what was his name? Leon, that searched for the fountain of youth, and so on and so forth. It's been a long time since that history class. If I had a Frenchman here, he would know it just like that. But anyway, you know who I'm talking about. I said part of his name. That's what we've got here, is the fountain of youth, meaning God's house, God's earth forever. And from the question that little 7-year-old asked me, why did God make mosquitoes? Maybe we can talk him out of transposing them. They won't be bloodsuckers up there because we won't have any blood. 7, in that sense, in that dimension. Verse 7, and the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. That's the very desert, okay? And this needs a little help here, and I'll give it to it in a moment. In the habitation of dragons, the enemy, the jackals, okay, where that's all that was there, and then it's going to be neat. Where each lay shall be grass with reeds and rushes. Now, this by one, I feel it's translated to a degree, the word parched, but it misses the whole point and the meaning of the Hebrew word. I want to call it up on the screen for you, and it is sharaba, and it's from an unused root meaning to glare or quivering glow of the air, and it's especially the mirage Okay? In other words, then the verse means where you might have looked in the past and all you see is a mirage, or you dreamed of something wonderful and it seemed to be in your mind, then at this time it's going to be there. It's not going to be a mirage when you're thirsty and in a desert land. It's going to be real water of life, a beautiful place. So I feel, and that's the reason I take the trouble to translate the word from parched to mirage, because it loses really the gift of God in not calling it what it is, to show that it isn't something that you just dream for or wish for and it be an imaginary thing, or a look-like maybe because of the glimmering glow of air over a desert place. But it's real. It's there. When God reconditions or renews this earth, and that's what he does. We don't get a new earth. We get a rejuvenated earth where this goes back as it was in the beginning. What a wonderful time that's going to be. You know what? I sure hope you don't miss it, because it's a great time. And I assure you, those that miss it are going to be in a place where it's not so pleasant. Okay? They're going to be blotted out. We won't even remember they ever existed. Isn't that kind of sad? But, you know, we love our brothers and sisters, and I'm talking about Christian now, not family immediately even necessarily. And even as close as however we may have been, if they take that route to the lake, we won't even remember that they ever existed. Therefore, no tear shed for them, because when they're blotted out, it's the same as though they never existed. Verse 8. Hey, if you don't understand some of what I'm saying today, when I speak of dispensations and different dimensions, just put it on the shelf, all right? I'm just talking about how God operates through the Scriptures. It'll be fine. It'll come to you. Verse 8. And an highway, a road, shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. That means the way to God's and his way. The unclean shall not pass over it. You know why? They're not going to be there, all right? But it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools shall not err therein. I would translate fools here, the simple ones. Not even they will make a mistake there, all right? And make an error means to go astray. No one's going astray there. That's what it says. No one on that road, to the right road to Almighty God, will go astray or commit an error. You know why? He counts, when you're trying, he counts it as perfect. All right, verse 9. No lion shall be there. That's to say there won't be any carnivore, nor any ravenous beast shall go up thereon. It shall not be found there. Anything that would rip or tear or so forth. But the redeemed shall walk there. God's elect. There won't be a carnivore left. Why? Well, what does a carnivore live from? Flesh. If there is no flesh, then he could not live. So therefore, God, even in the animal kingdom, as Paul so aptly brings forth in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, that there is a flesh of man, a flesh of animal, and a flesh of fish, bird, and a flesh of fish. Okay? They're all kind of different, but they all get changed, all right? They all have two bodies, in a sense. And some are saying, well, are you saying that animals are going to... Well, we read chapter 11 in this book in the millennium, and they were there, and they lay down together without tearing each other up. God loves animals. That's why he created them. Verse 10. And the ransomed, that's to say God's elect, of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. There's not going to be any sorrow or sighing. oh, well, isn't it sad about old Tom? You know, I don't know who Tom was or what happened to him, but I just mean there won't be any bad news, all right? I kind of like it when it's all good news today. And when you serve the Lord, basically, that's as it is. What it is, God is going to make a road for us, and you could call it the road to freedom. The road from worry, away from worry, the road that takes away all things that offend. And you only see the beauty of God's creation, unadulterated, in its own natural source and way, as only God can do. You know, I suppose as near as we could come to it is when we fix an aquatic type place and have hanging flowers, and you don't even have to water, but the moisture and the content, the humidity is just right in a very confined environment such as a greenhouse. That's what you're going to have there, only much better because it's everywhere and it's natural, and God places his own firmament or canopy over this earth whereby everything is safe and beautiful. You know, for the naturalist, that's going to be quite a time. And for these people that, the environmentalist, it is such a waste for them to worry about the demise of this tree or that tree. You know, God created trees so that we could have wood and we could have two-by-fours, okay? But man must learn to cultivate properly trees, crops, or what have you, using common sense. But they so worry about cultivate, they so worry about destruction, it's obvious they're not Christian. That's kind of a hard, that's not, maybe not totally fair. But it's going to be so much better, and nothing will ever be extinct eternally. Okay. I'll put it a different way. Well, that particular species is extinct. Oh, do you think God would let it become extinct even in heaven? I don't think so. So you see, sometimes the extreme environmentalist has a few truths missing. They haven't followed the instructions of verse 16 of the chapter we just finished, chapter 34. And they're a little short up here. And I'm not knocking the environmentalist. Hey, we can buddy together, no problem. I'm just saying, friend, you haven't seen environment yet as to what you're going to see. And man won't have anything to do with it. Man can do his best to destroy this earth, and he's not going to hurt it beyond repair. That is one of the reasons I have the lecture, There Shall Be No Nuclear Holocaust. Satan doesn't want one, God doesn't want one, and we people sure don't want one. It just isn't written in God's Word that there will be. So, what a time we have to look forward to. Boy, will the environmentalist have a heyday that day, or we all will. But be mature in studying your Father's Word. Let's take chapter 36. We'll get a verse or two in here. Let's go with it. Verse 1, and it reads, Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, that's to say the might of Yahweh being translated, and Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defense city of Judah and took them. In other words, when we come to this place, God said it's going to happen. And he did. But do you know who sent Sennacherib? Do you know who gave the orders to Sennacherib? Well, let's read on. Verse 2. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish, invincible, to Jerusalem under King Hezekiah with a great army. And he stood by the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. I mean, he's there at the gate, all right? 3. Then came forth unto him Eliakim, Hezekiah's son, that's which was over the house, and Shebna, the scribe, Shebna meaning bigger, and he kind of got demoted just a little bit here, and Joam, Yah's helper, Asaph's son, the recorder, keeping track of stuff. 4. And Rabshakeh said unto them, say ye now to Hezekiah, that thus saith the Lord, thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, what confidence is this wherein thou trustest? I mean, this is the Assyrian king, who is, you remember, a type of Antichrist. Who is this you're trusting in? And you remember a few chapters back, God said, hey, why did you go down to Egypt and ask for help when you had me? You didn't even ask me about it before you went chasing off down there. Don't leave God out of your life or the equation, or you'll always end up the way this boy is. The enemy is talking to him, delivering a message from God. Verse 5, I say, sayest thou. This is the enemy king. But they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust, that thou rebellest against me? I mean, where's Egypt at? Where are they? And I'm sure they're shaking in their boots because Egypt took a powder. All right, 6, lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, wherein if a man lean, it shall go into his hand. You know how you want to try to use a reed for a walking stick? It won't fly, friend. And pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. He's going to let you down. Man will always let you down. God will not. Don't ever forget that. But if thou say to me, verse 7, we trust in the Lord our God. This is an enemy king talking. We trust in the Lord our God. Is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar, meaning a fake? You think I'm going to believe that you trust in God when you've turned your back on him? That's a severe whipping, tongue lashing from an enemy. I mean, it would be pretty odd where we are supposed to set an example of following God to the heathen. The heathen is taking the side here, doing the correcting, doing the preaching, so to speak. Well, listen, we're going to pick this up here in the next lecture, and just don't miss it, all right? And who do you trust in? You trust your Father. Do you know why? He controls everything in this world. There is nothing happens in this world that he does not allow. Well, there's some pretty bad things happen. Well, that's man's fault. He has given you rules and regulations in his word to prevent that. Well, what about that rapist? Well, he said hang that sucker and it'll never happen again by him. And yet the law of precedent says, well, he's a poor boy. He's a rapist, hang him. All right? Get rid of him if it was deliberate and premeditated. That's the way God says to handle criminals, and he said others will see and hear, and they'll quit doing this kind of stuff around you. Do you think it would help prevent it? Well, it will for that sucker. All right? He's gone. All right? He'll never do it again. But you see, we don't follow God's law. And I use capital punishment, which God demands. Why? If you take a life, that life is already with the Father, and they're waiting for you. And there are no unsolved mysteries in heaven. All right? Anyway, what a beautiful time that's going to be when we get rid of scruffs. But the scruff makes their own choice. Let's save as many of them as we can by teaching and practicing tough love, but gentle love on gentle people, tough love on those that need it to save their soul. Hey, they're worth it, friend. It's not easy to practice tough love. It takes a real man or woman to do it, child. But it does show true love. Don't forget it. All right, bless your heart. You listen a moment, won't you please?